Ready? Okay. Well, good morning and welcome to this first lecture of the day. Welcome to August 1st. My name is Alison, Lane-Olsen, Reverend Alison Lane-Olsen, and welcome to this. I'm just going to adjust this.
If I move the speaker forward, it should be better.
Okay.
You need the microphone behind the speaker.
Okay. Test. How does that? Is that okay? Can everybody hear me? Okay. Well, I was interested in I enjoyed both lectures yesterday, and I was interested to see where yesterday's second lecture left off, which Kent spoke about the path of the healer, which was one of the ending slide. And that has been, so I thought this was a perfect place for me to be placed in the lineup, because I have been interested in that path myself for several years now. And where that journey took me is several years ago, I began to be interested in what is called energy healing, and I was interested in healing from that perspective. And I began to take some Reiki courses. So I'm imagining that many of you are probably familiar with that name and with what that is. If you've never heard of that before or don't know what the name actually means, it's a Japanese term. The Rei, R-E-I, of Reiki means soul or spirit. And Ki, or the K-I part, means vital energy. So it's like this idea that your soul, your spirit, has this energy that is flowing through your physical body. And that kind of energy healing and those techniques are just about supporting your energy flowing through your physical body, and it is a bringing together of spirit and the physical realm. So I was interested in that path and learning more about healing from that perspective. So I took several courses, and then several years ago, in 2020, I started offering sessions. And I did that at a distance, so if you're wondering how did that even happen, in 2020. And I have had the privilege of being able to have a number of sessions over the years since then. And I bring that, I wanted to mention that and share that as part of my path, because I was finding that in almost every session that I've ever had with a client, I have a particular sensation arise, and it's something that I have decided and felt true that I have began calling what feels like releasing and cleansing. So that's the title of my lecture this morning, my talk, is releasing and cleansing. So in every session, whether or not it was the intention of the session or not with a client, this feeling arises of what feels like releasing and cleansing. So when we're working with our spirits, we can imagine how much we are taking on and how much we are carrying with us. So when I feel this, the reason and what I experience as a sensation of releasing and cleansing, I don't know if you'll be able to relate to this or if it will just sound strange, but in almost every session that I can even think of that I've had, what happens is I begin to feel energy moving, and it's a sensation of, I'm trying to think of how I can relate this exactly, but it feels like energy moving in counterclockwise motion. So imagine even if you just hold your hand, even if you just move your hand in a counterclockwise feeling, okay? And you close your eyes, just that feeling. That's the feeling. I feel it all the time in almost every session. When I feel the counterclockwise motion, I know intuitively and in my heart there is releasing and cleansing happening. And it has happened in almost every session that I can even think of. Now, sometimes the counterclockwise is in different geometric shapes and patterns. Sometimes it will feel like diamonds. Sometimes it will feel like triangles. If it's circles, sometimes it almost even feels like a clock. And I wonder, are we going back? Is there a moment we picked up the stuff that we are ready to release and cleanse? And when did that happen for us? So this has been an experience that I've been having. I feel it all the time. I can't even tell you how many times I have written those words, releasing and cleansing, to clients over and over and over and over again. So what I wanted to share then, I thought, well, I wanted to bring something that felt really meaningful to me, but I hope also felt meaningful to you. And to take a look and say, okay, here we are. This week we're really looking at Scripture and the Bible. Is it the story of my inner life? And so I thought, well, what would be interesting for me, and what I hope is interesting for you, is release in there? Is release in the Bible story? And where is that at? And if that's an inner journey, if that's also the story of my inner life, and I'm experiencing this all the time, I'm trusting, I know it's in there. There's got to be release in the Bible. There's got to be stories of releasing. And when I add that phrase cleansing, I'm pretty sure we can all already have a number of stories that come to mind. Yeah, that's going to be in there. So I thought we could sort of journey through a little bit and take a look at some of the stories and think about where are we at in our own lives. And I thought this might be a nice time too, while this is early in the week yet, that maybe you've come to this beautiful place. And my hope is that you feel like this is a place where it can help you in that process of releasing. Maybe you've got a lot of stuff going on in your life. I hope this feels like a safe place for that you can come and have those intentions even at the beginning of the week, that I can learn to let some stuff go. And I hope this feels like a good place for that. And I felt it at church sometimes too. I didn't say that, I didn't mention that, but I feel this counterclockwise energy at church too on Sunday mornings as I was leading the Freiburg New Church. And so I love that. So I'm hoping this will be a time also that maybe we can let go. So, yes, the next slide is up, thank you. Before we delve into the Bible story for a moment, I thought maybe it would be helpful to be really clear, what do you want to let go of? What are you releasing right now? To make it more practical for you to sort of hit maybe more in the heart. So I have a list of things that might resonate. And if you want to add anything to this list, or if this feels like it, you can nod and I'll know. Okay. So what are we releasing? Well, what do we want to release? Could be worries. Could be stress. Maybe we carry around extra stress. Maybe it is, maybe we would love to release some thought patterns that we have over and over again. It could be something like thoughts that keep us small, like I can't do it, or this is never going to work, this isn't going to happen, right? So it could be something that we've held for a long time. It could be something short term. I don't know if anybody's ever had an awful dream in the middle of the night and you wake up and you're like, I got to get that out of my head. I got to let that go. This is, I had that happen the other night, so I thought, okay, this is good. It could be anger. Maybe there's some anger you would love to be able to let go of. It could be grudges. Maybe we are carrying around something that we would really like to set down in that way. It could be judgment of others. If we're really honest with ourselves, we might have noticed times, even recently, we thought, wow, I think I just completely judged somebody else. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the works of Paul Selig, but there's a quote in his writings. He says, "You cannot be the light and hold anyone else in the darkness." You cannot be the light and hold anyone else in the darkness. And we want to be the light. We want to be the best version of ourselves. So maybe it's judgment, maybe there's anger, maybe there's stress, worry, thought patterns, maybe there's limitations, maybe it's labels that we've put on ourselves or the way we see ourselves. It could be relationships. It could be it's time to set that down, or we've had that experience in our life. We don't even have to have a lot of judgment around it. It could just be time to let go of something. You know, it's like for the butterfly, and the caterpillar, the chrysalis is the perfect place to be until it's not, until it's time to grow and move on, and then all of a sudden it's time to release that, and there's no judgment in it. And it's even I feel like this is even reflected right in our physical being. So it's our out-breath. That's just part of our central process. You have to let go. We have to release. We have to breathe out. Okay, is there anything you would add to our list? Yes? Depression. That's what I heard you right? Yeah. Yeah, depression. Okay. Fear. Right. Missed that one. Yes, Susie, in that.
The tendency to say yes.
The tendency to say yes. Right, when you need to say no, or it feel good to say no. Yeah. Anyone else have anything you'd like to speak out loud? Anxiety, yeah. Sometimes it's also physical like illness. Yes? The power of the positive no.
Yeah, that's the problem with saying yes too much.
Oh, right, the problem with saying yes too much, yeah.
How do you do a positive?
How do you do a positive no? Yeah. How do you, yes. Really good. Okay, anything else to add? Hubris. Yeah. Addiction. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that adds and it helps us know, right, how it gives us a fuller picture. So where is release in Scripture? Cleansing, as I said, you can probably already imagine a lot of places where that might be. Maybe there's places that come to mind already. I was trying to find the very first place that I could find the word, specifically release, mentioned. And I think it's a little tricky because it depends on the version. So many different versions will have different language around all of this. It could be letting go, it could be release, it could be, there's so many different versions. But one of the first stories that I found was actually Genesis 43. Now, this isn't the first time that Swedenborg will use the word release, as he's describing and giving an exegesis about a passage, but Genesis 43 is one of the first places. And this is this is about the story of after Joseph has already been taken, and Joseph is in Egypt, and his father is grieving for him, and the famine has come, and they need to go get more food. So they don't recognize Joseph yet. But here in the passage it says, "And God Almighty give you mercy before the man, that he may release unto you your brother and Benjamin. And if I be bereaved of my children, I am bereaved." So this is Joseph's father saying, if there is not release, there's going to be great sadness in my life, more sadness, because he's already missing Joseph and thinks that he's dead. And if you remember the story, Joseph has asked for one of the brothers to stay behind. When they come to ask for food, it's Simeon. And and now he's asking for the youngest son to come. So there is release. It shows up in the Bible. It's there. It's part of this story, and it's part of our inner story. And here it's like, if there is not release, I don't know if I can find happiness again. The next story, there's several, but I thought I would just pull out, and I'm feeling like we're taking a little helicopter ride, to use Kent's language, and we're gonna just sort of move over scripture a little bit, get a little view here. This is big. There's a lot of release going on here. This is from Deuteronomy. At the end of every 7 years, you shall make a release. This is the way of the release. Every creditor shall release that which he has lent to his neighbor. He shall not exact it of his neighbor and his brother, because the Lord's release has been proclaimed. So this is big. This is release, release, release. And how much happiness would there be if we could experience this kind of release? I mean, imagine having a system where debt is released, and you could release some of that worry and anxiety. And this was part of what would be like the Jubilee. And after a series of 7 years, so after 7 Sabbath years, there would be the Great Jubilee. All debts canceled, all slaves free, all property returned. People would go home to their families and their clans for the year. So, freedom in this. And when Swedenborg is describing this passage, one of the things he relates this to is peace. There would be peace. You would feel peace with this kind of release. So release, and it's nice, it's built into the calendar. That would be really lovely. Okay, moving ahead, just another example, we find it in Luke 4, which is also a portion of Isaiah 61, and the words that we read there, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed." So there it is. Now this particular story, this is Jesus. It's after the temptation in the desert. He goes, and this is him preaching in the temple. He takes the scroll of Isaiah and reads it. So he's carrying on this message, and so here we have to release the oppressed. So it's something in the prophets. It's something that Jesus is carrying on. That release is part of the call, and in this particular, because he was preaching, release is part of the message, right? So it's about wanting to help with somebody else's release. This is what Jesus was all about. Coming into this world is to help us release some of the things that we had been carrying, the ideas that we had, to find love again, to find light, to find that connection with Source. Like this is what, right? This is part of what Jesus was doing. And then, it really shows up several times in this time in Jesus' life when he has been arrested. And so when the crowd had assembled, this comes from Matthew 27, when the crowd had assembled, Pilate asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you? Barabbas or Jesus, who is called Christ?" So this is really hard hitting here. And this is, right, this is like, there's, the word release actually comes up several times in here, because Pilate even says to Jesus, don't you know I could release you? Why aren't you talking to me? And he doesn't want to arrest him. He's got a message from his wife now. He doesn't want anything to do with this. And he asks the crowd, which one do you want me to release? So it's choices. As we are looking at this, this is like obviously a heavy story. But part of this is inviting us, right, to like think about the choices in our life. What are we choosing? What are we releasing? What are we holding on to? So then I wanted to come back around to speak to the scripture reading that we had this morning as I read out of Exodus. That this is probably, in my mind, one of the larger stories of release, like that we could relate to, is to come back to the story in Exodus when the Israelites are experiencing slavery now. And I would say it kind of speaks to the experience when maybe release isn't happening so easily. So when we remember the story, and I know I didn't have time to read it all today, but there is a back and forth conversation going on between Moses and Pharaoh. And Moses is saying, release the people. And then Pharaoh will respond by saying, I don't know. And then there'll be a threat. The plagues come. And often, then all of a sudden, Pharaoh will say, sure, I'll release you. And then he'll get to tomorrow, and then he'll say, no, I don't think so. So sometimes when we think about, well, what do I want to put down? What can I release, right? Some of it feels like, I don't know that I could just set it down so easily. Could I? Could I really, some of anger, stress, the judgment, the limitations that we feel, anxiety, depression. I feel like this kind of story might speak more to our experience sometimes, that we have an intention to release something and then we realize, I'm still carrying that. I wish it was a little bit easier than that. I thought I dealt with that. Sometimes maybe something comes back around again and you think, gosh, I thought I put that down. I really wanted to. Now the beauty of the story is, as the days progress, and as this journey progresses, something has changed each time. We are always in a little bit different place every time we encounter the things that we want to put down. We have changed. And there's just a lot of, but I think the dialogue might be helpful here just to think about a little bit, and that sometimes it feels like it takes time. But we are slowly moving to a new place. And so what I wanted to share is the next slide, is that when Swedenborg wrote about this particular time and about what it meant to be free for them, what he said was, finally leaving, going out of the land of Egypt, is an experience of being released. And then he said, this is about the truth and good that had been present but had been held back. This is about truth and good that had been present but had been held back. And I really love that, because I feel like that's like hope. That's like saying you already have the truth and the good within you. It's waiting there for a new expression. It's waiting there to help you live a different kind of life. It's with you, even if it felt like it had been held back, it's there. And when we can work towards releasing, letting go, not carrying everything with us, letting go of some of the things we know aren't so healthy for us, there is a new expression of us to be had in this life. And I love that, and I love the idea that if we could make releasing, and maybe it already is for you, but if it can be a conscious part of the spiritual path, there is so much help for us. There is so much, now all of it's not easy. Some things that were mentioned, right, and it's not easy, right? And the Bible speaks to this, I think, this story perfectly. It is a challenge, but the thing is if we want to get to a new version of ourselves, it feels like this is a piece to really consider and work on. to have the ability and the openness to say, I'm ready to be a new version of myself, or I'd like to release this version of myself. Because I was thinking about a little bit like the stage theory and some of it as presented in the lecture, like from Jim, and that, or whether it was Swedenborg saying it or if it was Keegan or Fowler or whoever was looking at it, but as Swedenborg was saying, I guess, right, it gets pretty thin on day 3. Like if you consider the whole, the path of spiritual growth in terms of days and phases, and that a lot of folks, as he was seeing it, at least weren't getting past day 3. Well, why? I've never liked that. Hearing that, I'm like, Jim, answer. It's my professor sitting in front of me. Why? That always, I never liked that. In my life, and I'm sure it must be the same for you, I have been very clear that I don't want to stop growing and changing and expanding. Why are we here? I want to be able to honor where we are. This isn't about being unhappy with who we are and what we've achieved, because if we don't have gratitude and humility and being able to enjoy the power of the present moment, right, all of that is really important. So that's all part of peace, and I think, but I there's also this part of me that says I never want to stop growing. I never want to stop learning. And I want someone to tell me if I have, is my feeling. And so how am I going to be a day 4 person if I want to really hold on so tightly to everything that's day 3 or day 2 or day 1? Wouldn't it be amazing if our country embraced this? I love, for instance, Kent, when you said that you had a moment where you were like, I'm just going to be a blank slate today. I'm just going to be a blank canvas, and I'm going to live my life today and see what happens and what I can learn from this day. What if we woke up in the morning and said, I'm going to be a blank canvas today. I'm going to be a blank slate. I'm not going to wake up a Democrat. I'm not going to wake up a Republican today. I'm just going to be me. How freeing do you think that would be? We are not born Democrats and Republicans, and Swedenborg never certainly said when you get there you're going to have to decide and there's only one right way and we're all, we carry a lot that we don't have to carry. It's good to care. It's good to want the best for one another. It's good to want the best for the community, and as I've gone down that road just a little bit, I'm just saying it's good. It's good. It comes from love. I think it comes from love. We want a world that feels good, and we all have different ideas of what that looks like, but do we have to hold on and be in that place? I think that's part of where Pharaoh is a little bit stuck. He wants the Israelites to remain where they are. He wants them to continue doing the same job that they've been doing. He wants them just to look a certain way, to not be very powerful. He wants, And it's something to think about for our own life, where am I stuck? And can I open up? And it's not even a stuck. It doesn't even have to be a stuck out of judgment. As I said, the caterpillar and the chrysalis, it's a good place. Egypt was a place they needed to be. They went there because there was famine, and because they went there, they survived and they thrived, and it was the perfect place for them. And then there comes a time when it is not anymore the place to be. So this is what I'm thinking is I am so open to, I want to be. I'm not putting myself up here on a pedestal. I'm just saying it feels important to have that part of our spiritual path that says, I'm open to being a new version of me. And I have this truth and good inside of me. And because that exists, I could be that. I could welcome that into my life. And Swedenborg said it in a couple of different ways, that we have that truth and that good already present and is a part of us, because he also said, this is not all of who you are. This is your human self, but you have a higher self. You have a soul self. It's the part of you that's going to live on after this physical life is over. That soul self, we could say, is, right, that's more aligned, we could say, with that love, that pure love, wisdom that we think of as God, source energy. So our soul self, it's got the higher perspective. It can see more. Wouldn't it be lovely to welcome that perspective in? So my thought was, if you're somebody who likes affirmations, for example, maybe we could use something like this. Like, today I am open to releasing this version of me to receive the benefits of my soul's current expansion and progression. Today I am open to releasing this version of me to receive the benefits of my soul's current expansion and progression. So, just taking a slightly closer look, if you're interested in a process to work with, or if you're interested in a practice, I thought we could get a little closer to the story of just even the beginning of that Exodus story in terms of Moses leading the people out, or being asked to notice. So I thought, if you're, you want to release something, say you've got something in mind, or you just notice that you don't feel great, you kind of feel stuck, you don't feel free, like, what is that? So I thought, just as a little practice or process, I'm like, okay, I think the story helps us know. This is like the helicopter coming down, okay? We're going to just sort of notice for a moment what's there. And the first thing I thought was, notice how you're feeling and ask for help. So if you're feeling stuck in any way, if you're feeling like, I'm just not happy, I'm just not feeling free, what is that? Obviously, that's a lot nicer feeling than the Israelites being enslaved, cruelty. But what happens is they are feeling stuck. They are feeling enslaved, and they cry out. It's just a natural response. They cry out for help. So it's like, ask for help. We can ask for help. So I thought, just observing ourselves, noticing our emotions, and of course, asking for help. The second part I thought was kind of affirming your own power in this co-creation process. Like, if all the story in the Bible is about our inner life, then we also have this Moses figure inside. And he's asked to lead. So we don't have to be victims in this sense. It's like to call in the power that exists within you to help move into a new version of yourself, or whatever it is you're looking at, is to remember that we have this Moses inside. And to say yes, not Susanna, but anybody else, okay? Because she's done saying yes, she needs to say no. But he does say yes eventually, and he's got all this help. Moses, he has the staff, he's got Aaron, he's obviously got this direct line to God. He has so much help, and we have so much help. We are surrounded by so much love. We have our angels around us. God knows what's going on, obviously. We have, depends on your understanding of your support team. There's physical people in place. Can be families, can be on the other side. It could be more than angels. It could be guides, some call them. It could be, right? We're surrounded with love. We are surrounded with love, and we are surrounded with help. And then finally, just acknowledge what you want to release, where you want to go, and to be thankful for what you've learned in the process. Like, how did that help me? How did the thing that I'm ready to let go of, how did it serve me? And then finally, I was just going to say, don't underestimate the power of water. So to fast forward a bit, the final piece and the final act of truly being free from the Egyptians, and it's a horrible story in the sense of loss of life, but as you know, the water parts, and the Israelites are able to go, and then the water comes back down. And there's this I would say it's not a good story in terms of the violence there. And when we look at it, right, symbolically, we can say, okay, this is a story of cleansing. This thing that's been after me, it's just gone. I can finally really let it go. There's a freedom now that I didn't experience before. And water is an amazing power, I think, for cleansing, and it's something that that we can use visually. So if you've ever, imagined like water it could just run over you. It could be, as you set your intentions, like to really use the power of water and to be like, some people, in the shower, how it feels. It's just cleansing. And you could just imagine everything that you wanted to let go of to go right down the drain. Like, so you can use your imagination. But I would also say, I'm just going to add a little story here, which is, don't underestimate the power of physical water for cleansing either. That there is real power there and to help us release and cleanse. And I'm just going to share a quick story, which I did share in church once, so I'm sorry to repeat myself. But years ago, I went to Disney World with my in-laws. And they wanted us to have this wonderful trip at Disney World, and it was great. But there was also like a lot of stress. So I had 2 little kids that I was looking after. There's a ton of people, as you can imagine, at Disney World. And it was just very, very stressful. Like, I didn't want to lose someone, and, there's pressure to have fun. And you see a lot of pressure around you of other families, a lot of pressure to have fun, a lot of, so it's just it was good. And it was stressful at the same time. So one day we went on a water ride, and it was like a round, floaty type thing with chairs. I can't think of the right word for it. It's a ride. It was like a raft. Yes, it was like a round raft. And we all got into this, and we all buckled in. My mother-in-law, she said, "Do you want this poncho?" And I said, I'd been watching other people get off this ride while we were waiting in line, and not a lot of people I was seeing they weren't that wet, okay? And I'm like, what are the odds that I'm gonna get really wet on this ride? I'm like, I'm fine, I don't need that poncho. So we go around the bend. I get dumped on. I am so soaked. I've never seen anybody walking away from this ride as soaked as I was. I was so wet. And of course, you should have worn that poncho. So, okay, so that was that. And so the kids love that ride. So we go back to that ride the next day. And my mother-in-law says, "Do you want a poncho?" And I said, "No," because what are the odds that this is going to happen again? So I said, okay. So I'm like, yeah, what are the odds? We get in there. You can imagine it. I got dumped on again. I am so soaked. I had to go buy new clothes at the Disney store next door because I was so sopping wet. And I thought, what is this? I am not seeing anybody else, and nobody else on our raft. None of our family is looking like I am. So I come home. And I have someone in my life who's been so critical and key and like a mentor to me these last many years. And she's somebody who had her name is Betsy. She's someone who had a near-death experience, and it changed her. Like, she felt God. She felt so much, and when she came back from this near-death experience, she brought all that with her. So she can hear her angels. She can get messages. She sees things. She sees timelines. It's like, it's something I would aspire to be, aspire. And I said to her, what was funny? I said, I went on this ride and I got soaked. And then I went back and I got soaked. And she said to me, they did that on purpose. Your angels, your guides around you did that on purpose because you were carrying too much. Like, all the stress that you had was not helpful. And they made sure that you got wet. Because there was something physically, spiritually powerful in the cleansing of the water. And I've always remembered what she said to me because I thought, that's amazing. So we have help, and they use water. Okay? So just, and I was sorry that the Saco was too wild to swim in just now. Not sure if I see Trevor's face. Anyway, I was just thinking of the polar bearing. Hi, Trevor, there's his hand. And how fun that is to be at camp if you can get in the water, to start your day that way even, because it's like, okay, I'm refreshed, I'm ready to go.
Invigorating.
Yes.
What'd you say?
And invigorating.
And invigorating, right, you never say cold, right, it's not freezing, it's invigorating. Okay, right, so thank you for hearing my story and my experience, and I hope that you feel open to releasing what you can, and that you have support. And if there's any questions or comments.
I want to thank you.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
I don't need to imagine the water in between breakfast and lecture.
Right, you fine.
I was just about to say that, because we haven't been for a while. David Keating. Three things. One, water is often called the universal solvent. Number two, when you, at the start of your lecture, you're saying you see the energy being released in a counterclockwise motion, and you inscribe that in front of you. Well, to us, it looks clockwise.
I know, I thought of that.
Your patient. Okay. And the third one, as far as being open to learning, it's so hard because it's easier to hold on fast to a belief and not change, but you have to work on it and be open to it. And someone with different political beliefs might have some truth you can learn from, or religious beliefs.
Please switch them out. Is it working?
Oh, okay. I won't go over it again because I'm usually loud enough people can hear me in the room, but I'm sorry for the people. Okay, and the third thing, about being open to learning. It's so important in this life and hard to do. I first was thinking most famous discoveries in science, they were totally ridiculed by all the people that should have known better.
Right.
And what I especially want to remember, and I think it'd be good to everyone to learn, is that to be open to learning when we go to the spiritual world, because there are some things that we believe now that aren't correct. You know, I especially worry about fundamentalist Christians, but maybe even Swedenborgians, that they'll go and say, oh, angels will try to teach them, they'll say, oh, this isn't the way heaven's supposed to be, you must be from hell. And not be able to be taught because it won't be what they firmly believe. So I keep reminding us over and over, if I'm going to wake up in the spiritual world, you can know they're angels because they're gentle and not loud and not forceful, and hell is always loud and threatening. But that's the most important time, I think, to be open to learning. But certainly in this world, it can be so helpful to be willing to look at your beliefs and to change.
Yeah.
It's hard to do, though.
Yeah, I know.
I really appreciated having a story to explain that process of why it's so hard. Because intellectually, I know it's hard, and I tell people, yeah, it's hard, and it's okay, it's taking you a long time. But, you know, personally, you think, why can't I do this? You know, I was ready yesterday, and then today, I'm just not ready yet. So I really liked that illustration that you are moving a little bit each time. It's okay, and just keep trying. And but that it's supposed to be a process, and that eventually you get there.
Yeah.
So thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Jessie White.
Thank you, Jessie.
Jim, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, kind of a question. Thanks so much, Alison, for your presentation. I liked the definition of Reiki, which is around my question. And I'm just noting your illustration with water, that feng shui, one of my favorite concepts, the Chinese etymology is water flow. So vital force of the soul, there's a doctoral Swedenborgian student right now who was at at Freiburg last year, who might be listening on Zoom, Len Thompson, who's working on the concept of vital force and how that operates in Swedenborgian spirituality. So when you're talking about releasing, noticing something, and asking for help, can you connect the idea of vital force, which within Reiki has nothing, as far as I know, that is transcendental, it's necessarily, but there's a way in which perhaps it could be understood in a Swedenborgian sense, connected to a higher power?
Okay, first of all, I would say I feel like I'm not necessarily like a total expert on Reiki, even though I've had my courses, because I feel like I kind of have my own version and understanding of the energy. And basically what it feels to me is just like energy flowing. And I know there would be, or it would be energy moving. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, I don't know if I'm quite getting to the heart of your question, but sometimes I guess what I'm saying is that's also a question for me, because I've wondered what is happening, because I don't have necessarily like a full sense of what the energy is doing, where it's going. Like I'm kind of going off from just intuitive sensations and feelings and a knowledge and my own Swedenborgian background, which says this is God. Like this is God's, this is God. This is source energy. This is all connected to spirit. And sometimes I'm like, maybe we're just in a soup, right? Like it's not like there's like one point of like energy flowing in. This is all God's energy. It's all, I really wish I could answer your question more fully, because I kind of don't have it worked out in my own mind. But I think about it, because I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, okay, good. I'm getting a thumbs up from Jim.
This is Trevor. Just a couple of real quick questions. We're almost out of time. You talked about spirals and counterclockwise. In nature, in the northern hemisphere, all spirals go counterclockwise. The water goes down the drain counterclockwise. The sunflower is counterclockwise. And in the southern hemisphere, it's the other way around. And the second one is when you talked about the Israelites released from Egypt and the 12 plagues and all, 10, how many were there? A bunch of plagues. And
Yeah.
It's like when you're trying to give up a bad habit and you're a slave to it, and then it gets a little bit worse, like say smoking, and you get a little cough. It's like, yeah, I can put up with that. And then it gets a little worse, and I can put up with that. And it gets a little worse, and I can put up with that. And then finally it's like, you're going to be dead. Okay, now I'll go. Now I'll do it. Now I'll stop. And that's what we do so often, is wait until it
Right.
gets so worse we can't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
I want to take the analogy of water a little further, in the sense that water can be a vapor or gas. It can be a liquid, or it could be a solid. And if we think about us in water, we could be in a different state. We could be in ice. We could be in mist, which is a dense fog, which is immersed, right? But at the same time, it's mysterious because we can't see. Or we could be in water that's raging and it's terrifying. Or it's a mirror. So, I mean, I think there's a way you can push your use of water in your lecture as a way of us thinking about where we are even more.
Yeah.
We're at the end of time. I would like to invite everybody to know that, yeah, we are, that we do have a lecture discussion group after the second lecture, so there is an opportunity to talk more about Alison's topic today. And Alison, thank you very much.